Entrepreneurship is in many ways a personal journey disguised as a business pursuit. These aren't the words of a self-help guru. They come from today's guest, a man who built a tea empire and then discovered that the most important skills in business aren't taught in any MBA program. David Segal started young, driven by a fascination with psychology behind why people buy. This curiosity eventually led him to co-found DAVIDsTEA in 2008, and I was only 13 years old, where he transformed a commodity product into experience that delighted customers across 200 stores and generated over $200 million in annual revenue. What makes David's perspective so valuable isn't just his success, it's his candor about the challenges. He opens up about failure of his software venture, Fitting Room Central. He's transparent about the difficult transition after selling his stake in DAVIDsTEA in 2006, when he discovered that financial freedom didn't automatically translate to fulfillment. Through these highs and lows, David's developed a toolkit for entrepreneurial well-being. His daily meditation practice, his commitment to family time, and his ability to manage the swings of the game, in his own words, have allowed him to stay grounded while building his newest venture, Firebelly Tea, a company that reflects his evolved taste for authenticity and quality. Today, we get to speak to the man himself, who's leading the charge at Highbeam. David balances ambition with mindfulness of how he learned the difference between a good idea and a viable business, and why he believes that using all the 8 cylinders of your potential is true definition of success. Join us for today's conversation with an entrepreneur who knows that the best business decisions often come from those with the quietest mind. Welcome, David Segal. Boom. All right. We got David Segal here on the Founder to Founder podcast. David, welcome to Miami. Thank you for doing this. Right before we started, we were just quickly chatting about what we thought was the meaning to life, like how much money is enough, and you shared something really valuable. So I think we should just start there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and you know, I've always moved the goalposts, much like many of us have. Like, you think back to whatever your younger self and what you thought was the number you wanted to make. If you were fortunate enough to actually make it, all of a sudden the number goes up. And I think actually the secret to life is I heard this saying, I wish I was smart enough to have invented it, but someone to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. And, you know, as I think of on my life and the moments I've been happiest, it had nothing to do with what was in my bank account. I mean, of course, you know, beyond a certain number, right? Like, you don't want to have to live paycheck to paycheck. That creates a lot of stress. I've been there in my life, and it's not fun. But beyond that, once you've made a certain amount that makes you independently wealthy, you know, then it becomes, as you said, like a way of keeping score and a bit of a game, and it becomes much more about what has meaning for you and what you enjoy doing, right? Like, if you enjoy doing it and you work hard at it, usually the money is a consequence of that. Like, the money's not an input, it's an output, right? Like, I often tell my kids that when they're like, I want to make a lot of money. It's like, well, that's not a thing. That's like what happens as a consequence of doing something else. You know, what is it you're going to do to add value to society and actually be a contributing member?
It's almost like money is an energy, and I want to just for the viewers that are listening in and curious, you know, I called my mom this morning. She was telling me, you know, asking me about my day. I said, you know, I got an interview. She's like, who's the interview? And I was like, oh, you know, my friend David Segal. And she's like, David Segal. And I'm like, DAVIDsTEA? She's like, oh, yes. And I was like, yes. Like, isn't it cool that you're able to build something around your name? And for those of you who don't know, let's go back just real quick, because we do want to get into the founder behind the founder, but you started this at a very young age, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, we were in the sauna one time. You're telling me a fascinating story. So let's begin. Like, tell me, where did DAVIDsTEA come from? And did you ever imagine it would amount to what it eventually became?
So, first of all, I hated the name at first. I'll tell you that. But no, I didn't. I went to McGill in Montreal and studied business, English literature, got really into writing for a period of time, wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was in diapers. I don't remember ever not working or ever not wanting to hustle and make money. I had businesses in high school. And when I graduated McGill, while most of my friends were going to Goldman Sachs or P&G or Lehman Brothers at the time, or wherever they were going, it just wasn't for me. And so I started a company that didn't work, actually, around clothing. It's called Fitting Room Central. We captured what people were trying on at the fitting room, and I had an algorithm where I was able to compare it to what they bought. And the idea being, when you like clothing, you first evaluate it on the rack, then you evaluate the fit on your body. So it'd be like modern day web traffic, right? Like traffic to the website and conversion rate. Same idea.
Got it.
And it was very interesting. And I wrote all these handwritten letters, and I sent them off to Les Wexner of Limited Brands, Victoria's Secret. And I was really good at getting meetings. I mean, I was in like Anthropology and Gap, and I met with all these companies. We even got a pilot at Macy's on 34th and 7th, but ultimately it didn't work. It was a nice to have, not a must have. Interesting is a great word in a classroom, but it's a terrible word in business. You want to hear things like, when can you deliver? Right. People will string you along because they don't like to say no. And this was a complex sale at a time where just like point of sale systems were being implemented. I mean, it was too far ahead of its time, and it just didn't have enough concrete ROI. You had to do something with the data. So I wasn't making any money, and I needed a job. And I ended up approaching a cousin of mine who's 50 years my senior, who had built Le Chateau, the clothing chain. I didn't really know him growing up, and I met him when I went to McGill. And he ended up giving me a job. He was looking to invest in small, medium-sized companies. He paid me a very nominal salary, and I ran around looking at companies. And I was in a tea store. In those days, tea stores were off the beaten path. They were either very Asian inspired or British inspired. And I was in one in Montreal off of a main street on a little side street. We were early for an international movie that my girlfriend at the time, is now my wife, had gotten tickets for. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I was also reading a book at the same time about what Warren Buffett looks for in investments. And here's this wonderful tea store where it's leaves in a cup, so it's high margin. It doesn't go bad like a turkey sandwich. You can operate out of small spaces. You're not selling TV sets. It's limited SKUs. I grew up selling running shoes and clothing, so you have multiple colors and multiple sizes, right? So here you don't have that. And nobody's doing this on a fun way on the main streets of the country. And so I walked into work the next day. I was like, tea, we should do tea. And long story short, we looked for a couple to invest in. And when we couldn't find it, we looked at Teopia was starting up at the time. Tivana was in the US. There were a few other local ones that had 2 or 3. I got really, really into this. And we almost made a deal, which would have been disastrous with one of them. Thankfully, we didn't. And eventually I turned to my cousin and I said, look, I'll do it. You back me. And we did. And away we went. And the name DAVIDsTEA, we hired a marketing firm and they got fed up with me because they kept coming up with these names. Like one was like the Boston Tea, and one was like, they had some Jules and Juliet, some play on a couple, and none of them made sense to me. And I was like, no. Yeah. Finally they got fed up. They're like, why don't we just call it Dave's Tea? And I was like, no, I don't want to be Paul Newman on the salad dressing bottle. We're not doing that. It just wasn't for me. I was like, I don't feel comfortable. Anyway, my partner came into work the next day and actually had a great insight. He's like, no, you want to have a beer with Dave. You want to have a tea with David. So I always joke with people. I'm like, before I was David, I was Dave, And then so we went with DAVIDsTEA, and we opened the first one on Queen Street in Toronto. It took a while. It wasn't an instant hit. Like it did well. Then we opened one on Mount Royal Street, Montreal. We opened 2 more. And then I remember, the summer after we had 4 stores, like we were really struggling. It wasn't doing enough. And then, we just kept sampling and hustling and getting people to try the product. We got our gift assortment a little bit stronger from the year prior. And then, and then it really started to go, and we were opening 30 doors a year. And by the time I left, it was a $200 million business, $30 million of EBITDA. We had taken it public on the NASDAQ. And I sold my position shortly thereafter. We had 200 stores across Canada and the US. And it was a great ride.
I want to dive deep into one section there because it's one that I often, within the Founders Club, it's a big conversation. Yeah. You experience, a little bit of slow growth in the beginning. Like we have a couple stores, sure. We have action. And then it goes to, there's a moment where you go, okay, and we're going to open 30 stores a year. We're going to scale this thing up. We're going to open into the US. What was it? What was the one thing, if you can think back, that changed in your mindset, maybe as a team or just in your head? We were like, we're going to take this thing, like we're going to do 30 stores a year. Like that's no joke, 4 stores. So like, we're going to do 30 stores a year.
We opened 32 doors on a base of 8. And it was the year my first kid was born. It was a crazy year. Crazy year.
Having a kid, I think we're going to expand this year. Yeah.
It was nuts. It was flying a mile a minute.
Was there like an indicator, or like you saw something in the data where you're like, it's time to go?
Well, I think that two things. I think, and this is, I have the benefit of hindsight, right? So I've since gone on and started a number of other businesses, and of course my work with Highbeam we'll talk about. But in the food business, for example, the 19-year-old kid behind the cash can really they can screw up a lot of things. They can screw up the product, they can screw up the margin, they can screw up the service in one fell swoop, right? So there's a lot of oversight in a restaurant. Like every day is a new day where you got to execute. And if you don't, there's major implications to the business. In tea, they can really only mess up the service. Like the product is packaged, it's ready to go. The margin is, I guess they could pour a little extra, that could happen. But by and large, it's pretty hard to screw that up. So it's a fairly easy business to operate. And we took a big shot. I mean, it's easy to look at and be like, it was obvious that it would work. But at the time, a lot of things could have gone wrong. I mean, we did two things that I think were unconventional. One, common retail strategy is to cluster your stores because you get a lot of operational efficiency. We didn't do that. We cherry picked the best sites across the country in all the best malls as much as we could. So we opened Toronto, Montreal, then Vancouver, right? Like, so we jumped into new markets, and we were willing to absorb a little bit on perhaps the management oversight than most would. It was very unconventional. And why we had the confidence to do it was the model worked, the math worked.
Right.
I mean, it was the cost of the build out relative to the sales, relative to what we could produce out of the stores, it worked. And there was a unique opportunity in malls where they were looking for this use. We had one other competitor. They had taken some malls, and we just got very aggressive. And we were 70% mall, 30% street at that time. And we just got very aggressive, and we rolled them out to as many malls as we could. And it was a huge risk. I mean, operating in 10 markets at once. Our head of operations at the time was living on an airplane, and so was I too. But it paid off. It worked. I mean, we were able to get enough scale quick enough where we filled in the gaps. We made a lot of mistakes in the process that we had to fill in for later. But it worked. Now, when we went in the US, it was a little bit different. I think the same strategy that works in one place is the US. We went a little bit too quick. We doubled down on sand. Our foundation wasn't strong enough, and the US market was very different. Whereas in Canada, they were buying tea for home use. In the US, it was much more like that sip of coffee you're just taking right now, where they wanted an actual beverage like they would at a Starbucks, drink on the spot. Whereas in Canada, it was only 10% of the business. In the US, right away, it was like 60%.
Wow.
And we made a mistake not retooling the model for America and being like, okay, they want us to be much more like a food and beverage concept than they do a retail concept. Instead, we kind of tried to force the Canadian model onto the Americans. And then at the same time, we started opening more stores in the US. And I think, looking back on it, the smarter move would have been really design the store for America, have an American design for Americans, make it work in one or two markets, ideally that aren't New York. You don't necessarily want to take your play to Broadway so fast, and then build off of that. But yeah, no, we learned a lot in the process.
You hear that so often, specifically in like the CPG world, where it's like, oh, we want to go nationwide rollout. So everybody wants.
Right.
And then in hindsight, it's like, well, I wish we just started in like one city, or even like just California. California is massive. Like let's just focus there. Let's put all our eggs in one basket so we can really like put all our stores beside each other. Like we can just have the economies of scale and focus there. And granted, there'll be some, people travel and things like that. It's interesting you say that. It's like, I wish we just kind of went a little slower and didn't go all over the place at once.
It's a little bit like in Canada, there was a unique opportunity to lock up the tea use for the mall. Now the malls ended up putting in 2 tea uses. So it really wasn't as big perhaps as I thought, but certainly getting there first, there was some value to it. And we knew the model worked really well. And there's less real estate availability in Canada. So it's not like, you go to Winnipeg.
There's only so many malls.
There's only so many malls. There's only so much real estate, and that you're gonna. It's sort of obvious where you're gonna go. Like Portlow Park and St. Vital are great malls. You're gonna go there, right? Like, but you go into suburban Chicago, and it's a lot different. There's much more real estate, much more commercial real estate available, and it's a little bit trickier to figure out where to go. And there are multiple places that might work. So I think there was no value in speed in the U.S. necessarily, and whereas in Canada there was, which is why our quick approach probably was successful. But in the U.S., their attitude towards tea is also very different, right? Like in Canada, we still feel connected to our British roots. Everybody has sort of a tea story. In America, they threw the tea in the water as protest, right? So it's just a different culture. Like America, both countries are coffee culture primarily, but America especially so. So yeah, I think what works in one place doesn't necessarily work in another, and when you're not sure, sometimes it's best to go a bit slower, get a solid foundation, and then when you really have it and you have a tipping point, then really go.
Now, throughout this whole journey of DAVIDsTEA, you were living in Ottawa?
No, Montreal.
You were in Montreal the whole time?
Yeah, Montreal, and then we did a deal with Highland Capital, founder of Staples.
Right.
Guy by the name of Tom Stenberg. Chip Wilson from Lululemon came in on the deal as well, and I moved to the States. I was CEO of the business till we were doing about 70 million of sales, about 5 million of EBITDA. And then I got to work with some of the best US executives out there, all Harvard.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 31.
Wow, amazing.
I took over real estate at first, then I took over buying and marketing. I had like a team of, 30, 40 people like reporting to me. We did all of our designs in-house. Wow. It was great. And for me, it was like getting my Harvard MBA and getting paid for it. Right. I learned the difference between running a militia and running an army. Very, very different. What I admired most about the executive team we brought in, top people from Starbucks, a CFO from a big public company. The CEO had been the head buyer at a major retailer, and also had partnered from McKinsey and Harvard MBA, and like these really smart, well-educated, very experienced business people, business executives. And what was amazing about them is like they taught me how to structure my thinking. They're really, really good at that. And I took a lot away from that experience.
What's an example of that? Like, how did you go about it before and after?
I mean, it's like that old Mark Twain saying, "I'm sorry I wrote you such a long letter. I didn't have the time to write you a short one." Right? Like, I think a lot of people in business take their stream of consciousness thinking, and they don't take the time to really refine it down into the essence of what they're trying to say. And there's a lot of value in subtraction. Right. And that's a skill. And that's something you have to be able to really think it through. It takes time to get something concise and to the point. And I think people kind of cut that process short a lot.
Wow. So you would say like almost simplify the somewhat complicated.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. And you do need process as you scale, right? Founders are kind of sometimes afraid of it. A great saying is like, what you stand for as a brand should never change, but how you do things as a brand should never stop changing. But in order for you to do different things rapidly, you do need, especially when you have a lot of people working in the company, you need process so that, startups are like controlled chaos, right? As they grow, you need a little bit more control, a little less chaos. But without you, the best processes don't stifle creativity, they facilitate it. So we had, like, for example, DAVIDsTEA, we had an empowerment policy at the store level. So what is DAVIDsTEA? What is American Airlines? What is Starbucks? What is any of these companies, right? Well, it's not the CEO. In fact, you couldn't even tell me the CEO of the top 10 Fortune 500 companies, right? What it is the experience that you get when you interact with the brand, right? So the most important, like when you think about an org chart, we have the CEO at the top, and then you got the VPs, and you got whatever, right? All the way down to the store level employees or whoever it is on who's considered quote unquote at the bottom of the org. It's actually the opposite. Like flip that. Right. They're actually the people who you think of, in my case, the store employees, they're at the top. They're the ones interacting with your customer every day. They're the ones your customers care about because they're the ones delivering on the brand promise and the experience. The CEO is there to serve the stores, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think so we had an empowerment policy at the stores. Like nobody wants to hear that's not our policy. When it's common sense. So we gave our store employees within certain guardrails, of course, but we gave them the ability to make it right with the customer, period. And so like that was a policy, and it was a great policy. It worked. It was a policy that allowed them to have some flexibility within a certain framework, and it worked really well. It meant that if a customer's pissed off in the store, that employee was in charge and empowered to make it right with the customer, and they did. And did it cost us a little bit? Yeah, it did. Was it worth it? Absolutely. But like, that's an example of a great process, right? Like or if you need to communicate with the stores, like you have to have a process for doing that. You got a lot of stores, right? So there has to be internal process for these kinds of things. So everybody hears the word founders often hear the word process and they want to run the other way.
Yeah.
But as you scale, that's kind of the art of business. How do you transition your company from a small group that you can make quick decisions and everybody's on the same page because they're all in the same room or right next door to each other? How do you transition that into a place where you have great processes to facilitate communication, but not turn it into a bureaucracy, which is what we're all afraid of?
It's very powerful. So you were the CEO pretty much the whole time, and then at what point, you went public with it, which is also very hard to do, to be like the CEO the entire time.
I wasn't the CEO the entire time. I was a CEO till we did about $70-80 million of sales.
Yeah.
And then when we brought in the private equity group,
right,
I agreed to step down as CEO and work with this executive team. I was on the executive team with them, running at first real estate, then buying and marketing. And I was also the third biggest shareholder still. So, and
was
which for most founders,
did you want that?
No, I didn't. I mean, my partner at the time felt that we needed professional management. And once I sort of let my ego get over it, which I think is a great message for all founders, like get your ego out of this, it ended up being one of the best experiences I've had. I mean, the truth was the company had scaled enormously fast. I did need help. There was a lot I needed to learn. And, I got a lot out of it. I mean, it was fantastic. I loved working with this executive team. And like I was telling you previously, like it was my MBA. And it ended up being a blessing in disguise. And we took the business all the way from 70 to 200 million in sales. Wow. 30 million of EBITDA. Yeah. And then we went public on NASDAQ, which was an incredible experience. And then I decided to leave the company a few months after that and ended up selling my entire position and moved on, did other things. What caused you, I guess, wanting to eventually say, you know what, my time here is done. Like I did my job here. Like that's a hard thing to do, to separate from something that you've been. Yeah, your name is on it. There's a fair amount of infighting at the board level, and I think when that happens, you lose your focus on the customer. And when you're not focused on the customer, you're going to miss movements in the market. And I think that actually ended up playing out for DAVIDsTEA. And it was just time. It was time for me to go. And I wish it hadn't been so. In fact, I tried to buy the company back a few times, once with Bain Capital. But eventually I moved on. I did other things. Yeah. I started a healthy fast food chain called Mad Radish. We have 12 stores in Canada, growing. I have a partner who runs it. Then I had another tea company, Firebelly Tea, many, many years later, 6 years down the line. With my best friend, Harley Finkelstein, who runs Shopify. We also have a podcast together called Big Shot. And actually building Firebelly was how I ended up in my current role, where I became a customer of this fintech bank in the US. I got sick of my bank. They give me 0% on my idle cash, no intelligence on my data, clunky software, bureaucratic service. They charged me for it. I came across this company, Highbeam. I was blown away, became a customer. They automate treasury, so they make you money on your idle cash. They have bill pay included. They automate the 13-week cash flow. They have an AI component that's incredible. Anyway, I ended up becoming a customer. They turned a cost center and a profit center for me. I called up the founder. I was like, I love this. This is amazing. He said, look, he built a 9-figure brand. Why don't you invest and become an advisor? I said, sure. I worked with him for a few months, and I found myself spending more and more time on it because I love meeting all these brand founders. Like all Highbeam does is consumer brands between $1 million and $300 million in sales. And we 4X the business, over $1 billion of flows. And finally he turned to me. He's like, this is a big opportunity. Why don't you come in as our president and help us really scale this thing? And I thought long and hard about it. I'm like, okay, it's a time to take another big swing. And so I found a partner for Firebelly, who's running that day to day. We're still customers of Highbeam. And now I focus on Highbeam at full time. Yeah.
That is I'll never forget one time you and I were on a run.
Yeah.
And it was just post Hush. And I was kind of in this spot. And you look at me and you're like, don't be scared to get a job.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
I know.
I've never even thought of that.
Yeah.
I've never thought of working for or with, or even taking an advisory position. And I've never thought of any of that. All I ever knew was having an idea, starting it, seeing if I can sell a couple. If I could sell a couple, maybe I could sell a lot. And if I could sell a lot, maybe I got a business.
Right. Well, I mean, being an entrepreneur is the ability to create something from nothing. And you can use that skill anywhere. And sometimes it makes a lot of sense to join up forces with someone that's already gotten some traction and help them make it something that's a game changer. I mean, what I love about Highbeam is I think we're entering a golden age for mid-sized brands where, you know, in many different ways. I mean, I know a lot of people are skeptical of AI, and I was too until I started working on it with Highbeam. But like, it's incredible what's coming down the line. You know, you're going to be able to run. I had a huge finance team at DAVIDsTEA. I had more people in finance than my buying team, right? Like, but now when you think about it, if you're a 20 million, 30 million, whatever it is, if you're an 8-figure brand, you're going to need half the amount of finance people because the AI and the automation is getting so good that a lot of these tedious manual finance tasks, we can automate. And that's exactly what Highbeam's focused on. And what I love about it is I get a lot of meaning out of it. I mean, we're helping entrepreneurs drive the economy, right? Like small business and medium-sized businesses are the heartbeat of the American economy. And we can help support that. We can help them operate leaner, generate more income. They're the ones taking the risks. We save them time and money. And I like waking up every day and doing that. I mean, I think we're transforming what it means to be a bank, especially for consumer brands. And that's a big idea and a big mission, and it's a huge market. And so when I saw that, I was like, I'd like to use my skill set as an entrepreneur, the ability to create something that doesn't exist today, and help this incredibly brilliant, smart group of people, the founders and all the employees there and all the incredible developers we have there, and help them take it from where it is today to a massively successful company. I think as an entrepreneur, you should never narrow your thinking and close off your mind to different possibilities. Like, you should view entrepreneurship as a skill set that you have and that you cultivate, rather than a set way that you necessarily have to be successful and operate on the day-to-day basis. There are entrepreneurs, I think they're called intrapreneurs, but that's just a fancy name for an entrepreneur in a company, right? Like, there's a lot of different ways to apply your skills.
What about the concept of, you made life-changing money in your entrepreneurial career.
I did.
Like, it's life-changing money for anyone.
Yep.
And for a lot of people, the reason behind why they do what they do is to have that moment, to have the moment where you go public, or you have an exit, or you take secondaries, whatever your vehicle is. And was there ever a moment, before the Firebelly, before the Mad Radish, before Highbeam, where you're out of DAVIDsTEA, you've got a bunch of money, and you kind of sat with yourself? Was there ever a moment where you kind of felt like your identity was attached to this thing that no longer serves you?
I went through a fairly meaningful depression when I sold DAVIDsTEA. It was a very difficult time in my life. I had made more money than I had dreamed about a decade prior, and I was miserable. I had lost all meaning. I went from walking into an office with 150, 200 people who all wanted to talk to me, and I was an important piece in this puzzle, right? A very important piece in this puzzle, to what am I going to do now? And I had to figure that out and reinvent myself. And I'm never going to stop working. I think that was one of the realizations I made. Often people think of this moment that you're going to have an exit and make money as the end, when in reality, it just becomes the beginning. Like, you need something to do and to wake up in the morning and have purpose and be part of society and have meaning. And at least I do. And I had lost that momentarily. I've obviously since gained it back, but that was a very difficult time for me, because when you're in the moment as a founder and you're building and you're growing, all you think about is how do I make that first, real life-changing amount.
Right.
And I certainly was one of those people. And I was like, okay, I'm gunning for this. And I wouldn't think about anything except growing my business, making it profitable, and hopefully one day reaping the benefits of that. And once I did, I hadn't really thought about life after the exit, right? At all. I didn't think about any of it. And so there I was, and it hit me like a Mack truck, and I wasn't ready for it. And, but you know, it was a struggle. I got through it.
Is there anything you like looking back, obviously hindsight's 2020, like looking back on that version of you post exit, just kind of like trying to figure it out? And the reason I bring this up is because like so many entrepreneurs that I, you know, are in the Founders Club that I speak to all the time are like, that's what they want. They want the exit. They want like they want that moment. And I'm like, you know, and yourself, like on the other side of that, I say like, it's great. Definitely go for it. Like I would not change it for the world, but I wish someone told me just say, hey, like, be ready for that. Like it's not what you think it is, you know? So like, looking back, would you have either done something differently or wish you prepared in a different way, or it just...
Yeah, I wish I had had more mentors around at that time in my life to help me through that moment. And listen, I don't want to give the wrong impression. Like you said, it's wonderful. It's great. I mean, it is incredibly rewarding and and it changed my life. Yeah. And so I don't, you know, I gave my family security and it was all well worth it. I just wish I had given more thought to what comes next. And it's very hard for entrepreneurs to do that in the moment, right? You know, it's interesting. The other thing, I for me when I left, I also ended up with some health issues and which I've since gotten over, but I went through a tough time afterwards. And I think it was all related, right? It was physical, it was emotional, it was everything. Right. And you know, it's like a saying I heard the other day. It's like when you're not, you have 1,000 problems at any given moment till you have a health problem, then you have one problem. And I think it's sort of, entrepreneurs sometimes need to make sure you got to turn it off a little bit, and you got to think about you know, you're not, you need to come first. Entrepreneurs need to put themselves first. And we sometimes don't do that. We're so focused on our business. We're so focused on where we want to take it and where we want to go. And everything else like falls to the wayside. We don't really think about us and our future personally, right? And that matters. I mean, and I learned that, I wish somebody had been there in my corner. And I wish, you know, I had talked about it more with people who had been through it, and I didn't do that, and I paid for it, I think.
And we just like kind of internalized. How old were you like during that phase of your life, like when you were out of DAVIDsTEA?
Mid-30s.
Yeah, so like super young, figuring it out. Yep. When did you decide, you know what, I'm gonna go and start another business? And that was Mad Radish? Yeah. That was the first step into it. Like where did that come from?
Too soon. Probably about 6 months in. That's another, if I was to do it all over again, I probably would have waited just a touch longer.
What would have been the difference if you waited longer, you think? You wouldn't have done it?
I'm not sure whether I would or wouldn't have. It's tough to say. You know, obviously I went through a pandemic. I had a restaurant business, a pandemic. I mean, it wasn't that, you know, like, so I've been through some tough times.
I would have waited a little longer.
Yeah. Having said that, that business is a good little business now. It's growing. You know, I have a phenomenal partner running it, and it's 12 stores, and we keep opening them. And, but I don't know if that's what if I'd waited a little bit longer and given it more thought, I don't think I spent enough time considering all my options at that point in my life. Yeah, I don't think I gave myself enough time to soak in what I had accomplished, where I was at, and let my mind open up to possibilities enough. I think at that moment in my life, I still felt like I had something to prove. And I don't want to be a one-hit wonder, which is total BS, right? Like none of that matters. None of that matters. And the more the quicker you figure out how to not, and I'm no expert at this, I've just been through a couple of rounds. You know, the quicker you figure that out, the better decisions you make, I find. The quicker you sort of are able to be like, okay, that's just ego talking. Like what? I'm not saying I wouldn't have done it. I love Mad Radish. It's a great business, and it serves a lot of customers. We're in you know, healthy fast food in Canada, which is sorely needed. It's all burger joints, and we're there to right
Subway and whatever.
And it's well executed, and we've spent 7 years figuring out the menu, and you know, it's been a good journey, and I've learned a ton through that experience as well. But I think I would have taken a little more time to consider all my possibilities.
Wow, that's insanely powerful. And then starting Firebelly was like, I'm going to get back in the tea game.
Yeah, it was fun. Firebelly is a fun side. It started as just a fun side hustle.
Yeah.
I would curate tea collections for my friends, one of whom is Harley, and I got him on a green tea in the afternoon. He was drinking too much coffee. He'd have headaches. And then I started making the accessories, which I know how to do well. Actually, we're just about to launch this. So our travel mug is made for loose leaf tea. It has a press. You can make hot or iced tea. It's really cool. It's our number one selling item. We figured out, because it's leak proof, we could put a whisk in the lid and you could flip it upside down, push a button and whisk up all your powders. Because the market now is powders, right?
Like, wait, what? You turn it upside down?
Yeah,
and then
there's a whisk in the lid, right? And then you flip it upside down, a battery in the lid and a whisk.
So smart.
And you're able to whisk up your powders on the go. And so we're about to launch this in a couple months. So we've kind of emphasized the accessories a little bit more because we're particularly good at that. I mean, I obviously through DAVIDsTEA know the supply chain really well, and I know how to do it. And I design these accessories and make them for tea. And powders, I think, is sort of tea adjacent. So it's a much bigger market. So I'm really excited about that. We're about to launch that, but that's been a fun business. I enjoy it. It led me to Highbeam. So it also, everything kind of, sometimes you don't know why, and it leads you somewhere you weren't expecting to go, but it's a good business. It's growing and it's a good lifestyle business.
Would you say that, now at the stage you're at, you are like, are you like if people who meet you now, I got to meet you like post DAVIDsTEA,
sure.
Would you say that the version you are of yourself now is no longer the version you were back when you were building DAVIDsTEA? And the reason I ask this is because like some people come to me and they're like, I actually had one of the people within the club say this to me the other day. They're like, oh, like you're so intense, is this how you were when you were building Hush? And I was like,
yeah, you're more intense.
I was like, actually not even close. Like
really?
I'm like a fraction of what I was when I was building
exactly.
Hush. Yeah, building Hush. That guy's dead.
Yeah.
you know, but that's what needed. That's what Aaron needed. Would you say that to be true? Like the version you are now, the way you operate, the way you approach business, is it a lot of it is the same, or you're just a completely different operator? And how you go about things is just completely different.
I think your chemistry starts to change, and I mean I see this in my son who's 8 years old. My wife calls him a man of action with no plan, and he's just a ball of energy, but he's not thinking anything really through. And I think as you evolve, obviously, you get puberty, you get smarter, you go to school, you whatever, right? Like you get. But I think when you're doing it for the first time and it's really starting to work, you're still incredibly energetic. You're still pretty intense. I'm still very energetic. I'm still very intense. But you kind of get better at if that's the superpower, you just get better at channeling it, and you put some guardrails around it, and you just learn that through experience and age, right? Like I mean, I'm less reactive now. I don't make decisions late in the afternoon or feel I need to solve everything in the evening. I sleep on stuff.
Wow.
But that's the most powerful tool out there. Like anybody in their 20s listening to this now, building a company, like sleep on it. Like just sleep on it. Like, we always have all these. I was just connecting with a founder right now for Highbeam. Yeah. And he had gotten some bad news. And I asked him, I said, I'm like, is this like existential bad news or like bad news you're not even going to remember it a month from now? And like the reality is most of the time, all the things you think is so important right now, you barely remember, if not months later or weeks later, right? Like you're constantly putting out fires. Like on a day-to-day basis, it feels like your entrepreneurship is like walking in quicksand with 2 bricks on your ankles, right? But then you look back a few months and you're like, wow, look at all the progress I made. And I think once you've been through that enough times, you start to... time can be your friend. Like taking time to think about something is not a bad thing. You have to kind of balance when speed is valuable for you and when just like chill out for a sec, like get some rest, have a nice meal, give it some space, let your cortisol and your initial emotional reaction die down, and then take action, right? Like I think it's Bezos who doesn't make a decision after 10 a.m. or something. Yeah. I think that's brilliant. And the more I do this, the more I realize like, an hour in the morning is worth 2 in the afternoon. Right. And so I would say like, it's not that I'm not energetic. I mean, I bring it every day. Like I think, you need to be exothermic. That energy is super important. But you got to know how to guide that energy. Like that energy pointed in the wrong direction can really lead you off track, and everybody's going to follow you. And like so you just gotta be, really clear on where you're directing your energy, and is it worth your time and your energy? Because it's not an infinite supply. It needs to be replenished through sleep, through diet, through exercise.
Right.
Yeah, and I ruminate a little bit less. I sort of ask myself, I watch my thoughts a little more, and I ask myself, like, is this true? Is it kind? Is it useful? And then I sort of let it go, right? Like, there's nothing worse than that running the tape where you're running round and round and round, and you're ruminating on an idea. And like, at some point, it's just ridiculous. Like, you have to tell yourself, not now. Like, you have to learn to compartmentalize it and be like, not now, because you're going in circles. You're not really, it's just you in your head, like spinning around and around. And I've gotten better at that. I've gotten a lot better at that the longer I do this. I'd say that's the biggest difference between me now and me 15 years ago.
It's that self-talk, right? It's like being able to like almost talk yourself off the ledge, but also like talk yourself into things. Like also like pay attention to things that are important. Yeah. Because then you start talking like things are important. You're like, nah, I'll deal with that tomorrow. You start like, it's almost like a muscle where you're like, is this actually crucial is it catastrophic? This need my immediate attention? So
one thing I've noticed at Highbeam that's so important that brand founders don't think about, that can have an enormous impact on your business. So one of our customers, $30 million business, their buying terms are 30 days before production. They've been in business for almost a decade. 30 days before production, 90 days production, 30% upfront, 90 days of production, 40% after production, then before it gets on the boat, then 30% net 30. By the way, this is not uncommon. I see this with a lot of our Highbeam customers.
How are they supposed to flow their cash?
Right. So you understood that very early on. I remember when you and I met, I was surprised at how much you understood how important working capital is. Most founders think when they negotiate with their supplier for their product, they're negotiating the price of the widget for the price. What you're really negotiating on is who's going to finance whose business.
Exactly.
And I think this is one of the most important lessons and things. So like you talk about energy and where you're directing your time. Like I sat with this founder and I was like, if you do nothing else this year, you need net 60 days, right? Like which is not which you can get. Like you have scale, you've been in business a long time, you've had steady growth, you need to go to your supplier and be like, you guys have been taking advantage of us. I have 2 other suppliers lined up and I need net 60 or I'm not doing business with you.
This is a masterclass. I want to double click into this because I see this 5 to 10 times a week.
Sure.
It's less, I want to say it again, it's less about the price you pay. So it's less about your apparent margin, because you could have 99.999% margins, but no cash to run your business and you're dead.
I see this. I mean, this is what we do at Highbeam. We help founders with this, and we're just about to launch our AI. Well, I guess this isn't going to air so fast.
Yeah.
We launched our Highbeam AI.
Our AI is launched.
It's launched by the time but yeah, Highbeam AI, we allow you, so we have like a cash conversion calculator. So we literally have it so you can plug in different inputs. So what are your buying terms? What are your inventory turns? What's your sales expectation, cost of goods, et cetera, et cetera. And you can play with one variable and you can see. So it'll spit out what you need in working capital. And you can be like, okay, if I get 30 days better buying terms, what does that mean? So I ran this exercise for this customer where he has negative 60-day buying terms. And I'm like, what happens if it's net 60? And it was like $2 million he can put in his pocket. I mean, it's unbelievable how important working capital is. And as a founder, so you talk about energy and where you want to actually go for it. You need to isolate those things that are going to actually have an impact on your business. And there's actually fewer than you think. Yes. And by the way, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority.
If like you got to boil it down.
Totally. It reminds me of those annual plans that we have with your team, right? Y'all sit down in January and you write out your priorities for the year.
Yeah.
How often?
Never. You'd be lucky if you get through the first quarter.
You got it. And you write like 5 of them and you do 1. And I actually think it's the opposite. You should write 1 and really do it.
Yeah.
Right. And yes, you're going to do other things. Other things are going to come up, of course. Like it's that Mike Tyson saying, we all have a plan to get punched in the face. Right. Like, of course. But like, make something a real priority that really has a massive impact on your business. And that means making sacrifices. Like if you're not saying no to stuff, you're not saying yes to anything.
I remember during our due diligence phase, we were selling our business. We had PwC do the type of guy that Aaron is in PwC. It's like oil and water. It's like we're not the same, you know. And I remember they created this whole like chart and all this complicated stuff. And they're like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, how did you guys only put in $4,000
Yep.
and you're expecting to do like 48 million bucks this year. And you have all this inventory and the balance sheet is this. And I remember telling this, like, he was a kid, he just graduated school, you know, he was like doing the math. He was trying to like wrap his head around it. He looked like he was looking at a gold mine. And I was like, dude, it's very simple. We 6-week pre-order.
Yep.
And we have net 120.
There you go.
You add those together. I'm not paying anybody until
you had
60.
net 120.
Yes.
That's
well,
impressive.
it was technically net 60 because 120 from when we placed the PO, 60 days till we get it. So 60, it was in my warehouse for 60 days.
60 days from when you received.
Yeah, but I was turning inventory every 30 days. So
That's
I've already
incredible.
sold and
Yeah, you had
purchased.
negative working capital.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's like, that is
So
the name of the
someone's like,
game.
oh, did you raise money? I'm like, no, you understand. You said I just made good deals. I made 2 good deals. The customer was the hardest, right? That's the one you can work on. But everyone else is just deal making. Even like your invoices with, you know, your shipping companies, you know, they want to charge you every week. They want to charge you every day.
And your business would have been worth half had you not done that. You would have had to constantly raise money, constantly finance. I would have
made a 10th of what I made.
Oh yeah.
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 100%.
I think, and it's remarkable to me how little founders understand this relative to its importance to their business. It's one of the things that attracted me to
my
Highbeam.
competitors died. They were never able because they had to raise money or expensive money. Everyone's saying, oh, Shopify Capital or Wayfair, all these things.
It's like
11,
40%.
And it churns. They don't understand the math. They don't know how it's daily. It's taking your cash flow. Like
there's 10 hidden fees in there.
They get bamboozled and it's like, now what? And then at the end of the day, I'm like, listen, you have a 15-point margin and you have an 11.5% gone every single month. So the 4%, do what you can with it because you're dead. Yeah. And it's a very interesting thing. And I learned it the hard way, to be honest. I was very lucky with accountants that were like explaining it to me. I would always say like, dude, explain to me. I'm a 2-year-old. Like, I don't get it. But now with AI, now with tools like Highbeam, or even literally just talking through it with GPT, I literally talk through P&L sometimes. It makes the world of a difference. Yeah. One decision.
Yeah. And if you look at the landscape now, I think a few years back, everybody thought, I'm going to build this thing. I'm going to get a huge multiple. I'm going to sell it, right? I think those days are gone. And maybe they'll come back.
You got to build something great. You got to build something great.
And there'll always be a buyer, fair. But a lot of businesses are just going to be fantastic lifestyle businesses. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just requires a slightly different mentality. You have to turn the dials. You have to operate and you have to understand how to manage it for cash. And you can have a phenomenal business that spits out a ton of money every year if you do.
Right. Is that, I mean, I've never built anything like that. I mean, maybe with the Founders Club, we have like a 40-year plan. I really want to take on YPO. I think we can do it. I think I'd probably play at it for the rest of my life. I never really want to sell it. So by hindsight, it's a lifestyle business, but I've never really done so. I feel like it's like a special type of entrepreneur that like really wants to build a lifestyle business, or you just believe it's a decision you have to make.
Well, I think it's both. I mean, it reminds me of the old days where like immigrants would come and say, oh, my grandfather was an entrepreneur. Well, he was an entrepreneur by necessity.
He had no choice. Yeah.
Right. So I think, you know, again, entrepreneurs have to be radically open-minded. And it's not that you won't sell your business. You can still hold that possibility. And when somebody comes along and offers you a price that's too good to refuse, you'll take it. But in the meantime, you're doing yourself a favor by really turning the dials and maximizing for cash flow. And one, it's going to allow you to take money out of your business and actually make a great living. And two, it's going to boost your EBITDA, which ultimately is what people are buying. They're buying cash flow. They're buying your brand, what they believe the future cash flows of that brand will be.
Right.
And what they think they can do with it. Right. So you're doing yourself a favor. I think more and more this is going to be the norm. And if you go back 50 years ago, or, you know, people didn't build businesses to exit them. They built businesses to support their families and to have a lifestyle around them. And those people who did it, not day after day, month after month, year after year, but decade after decade. I mean, I have this podcast with Harley called Big Shot, where we're both Jewish and we grew up idolizing these incredible Jewish entrepreneurs that had built these monumental businesses, usually from nothing. I mean, they came here with nothing, like the shirt on their back, right? And they built people like Larry Silverstein, who built half of New York, Izzy Sharp built the Four Seasons, right? I mean, they're incredible entrepreneurs. We just interviewed Mike Milken, Bond King, who also changed medicine after his second part of his life. And anyway, they what I've taken away from all of them is that the reason they're so successful is not that they had this incredible idea and it took off and they sold it 5 to 10 years later. They're 50-year overnight successes. They stayed in the game. They just, like we interviewed Peter May, whose partner was Nelson Peltz. They're famous activist investors. Nelson Peltz had mugs that say sales up on one side and expenses down on the other. And it's perfect. And so they own these businesses for decades, and they would just turn the gears and turn the dials, and sales would grow, and they manage them a little better and generate more cash and generate more cash and generate more cash. And they stayed in the game. They operated the businesses, and eventually the cash just kept flowing, and they became enormously successful. And then, of course, they gave back to society and created jobs and all that stuff. But they didn't go into it thinking, I'm going to have these big exits. They came into it saying, I'm going to be a great operator, run a great business, and build, and just keep building year after year, decade after decade,
I think about that all the time. Some people ask me, like, do you wish you kept Hush, or, was it a good sale? And I have no regrets. I thought it was fantastic. I think it was rare to sell your company within 48 months, and COVID, and it was top of the market, and all these things were great. Yeah. But there's like a part of me where it's like, the Hush is bigger now than it ever was. It's going to continue to grow. And that's why, like, with the Founders Club, it's like, I just want to build something like forever. Like, I love that. Sales up, expenses down. Like, that's what I enjoy so much. It's like, where can we be more efficient? Where can we get more out of? How can we bring out the towel here? Like, that's the game that I feel like every entrepreneur plays.
Often in business, 80% of the value gets created in the last 20% of the race.
Wow.
Yeah. If you look around, that's usually the case.
Yeah. I think like Warren Buffett's wealth, like, all came like totally the last like 20 years.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a big compound effect.
Wow.
Yeah.
Speak of compounding and like personal wealth, a lot of founders, and even like myself, like post exit, or you sell your company or secondaries, whatever it is, you get like flooded with like, okay, now like, what do I do? Right. And I went through like a little bit of like a crisis. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I didn't do anything. I like moved back to my mom's basement. I'm like, I'm not spending $1. I bought my mom a car, and I was like, I'm not doing anything, and slowly bought the S&P. It took me a long time to get comfortable with it. What, like thinking back to that moment, post DAVIDsTEA, what did you do anything to like get back in the game? Did you like take it really slow? Like, what was your mindset around, okay, now I got a bunch of money. What do I do?
I did it all. I went on all kinds of deals. I invested in real estate. I did.
Anything you wish you did do or didn't do? Like, was there a couple of mistakes?
Honestly, the best advice I could give is just buy the index.
Buy the S&P.
Buy the Vanguard index fund, or get some dimensionals, and like get a low cost. I mean, Buffett had that famous bet, right, with that huge hedge fund manager, where he said, "I'll beat you if I just buy the index over 10 years." The hedge fund manager over the first 3 years was like killing him. And then over 10 years, sure enough, like the Vanguard index beat this top New York hedge fund.
Wow.
Unless you're going to be a professional investor and you're going to study this day in, day out, just buy the index. Like, don't overcomplicate your life. Keep a certain amount in short-term fixed income that you can, just pure, that you can get anytime. Maybe you put a little bit in other fixed income, but keep the bulk of your cash, especially if you're young. Just put it away for 20, 30 years. Don't even look at it. Take what you need to spend, buy your house, do whatever you're doing that you need to live your life and have your lifestyle. But I don't know. Every time I try and be smart and think I'm a genius because I looked at something for an hour, right? Let's be honest. Like, some of your friend sends you a deal, and okay, like, unless you're invested in it, right? Like, you're investing your time and your soul, and you're in it, just buy the index. Yeah, the index is a great investment, and you're buying the U.S. economy. You're buying, you're buying, or the Canadian economy, or whatever it is. You're buying whatever index you're buying, right? And frankly, if that goes to zero, none of it's going to matter anyway. You might as well grab your fishing rod, because the world's coming to an end, right?
Yeah.
Like, if
you're betting against the world, then that's fine.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I looking back on it, and frankly, going forward, that's the way I think about it. And buy the index.
My old advisor gave me the best advice. Actually, it worked against him, because I think he wanted me to give him some money so he could invest it. And I told him, I can do it myself. I'm just going to buy the S&P. It's really easy. I can set up an account. I can just move money in, and I'll just automate it. And he's like, no, like, you're not a professional. Like, I spend like pretty much all day doing it. And I was like, you're right. Like, if I think of sports, it doesn't matter how much skill you have. Like, the best of the best are training all day. Like, I play a ton of paddle now. I still get my ass beat every weekend, because these guys train hours every day. I do once a day. They're like 4 hours midday stretches. I can't compete with them And if that's not going to be me in the stock market or in the equities or looking at deals, if I'm not looking at deals all day,
right,
then I'm not evaluating them at the best. I'm not understanding the market. I'm not reading everything. And actually turned me off from him because I'm like, wait, you spend all your day with clients. You're not looking at it either. He's like, oh, well, I got a team and stuff like that. But in my head, I was like, I just got to buy the S&P. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Of course. And this is not to say that there aren't incredible investors out there and incredible funds. There are incredible real estate deals. I've had some real estate deals that have been excellent. It's not to say that there aren't alternative investments.
Right.
Most of the best ones are hard to get access to. And if you can get access to them, great, by all means. But generally speaking, for most people, including myself, the index is very few people actually beat the index if you look at it over a time.
Especially over like 10, 20 years. Yeah.
It's very, very hard to beat the index. And so here you can buy something with almost no fees that you can just put away and not even think about. As long as you're not one of those people that like freaks out when the market drops 20%, because that happens.
Recently.
Yeah, it dropped a lot last week, and it'll exactly, and it'll happen again. And I've lived through a couple of these cycles now, and it's jarring for sure. But as long as you're somebody who doesn't freak out and sell, if you just hold and leave it alone, you're going to do well over time.
What would it's interesting because on your podcast you get to interview like legends, like people that have done some of the most incredible things, untold stories,
right?
And it's interesting because I don't know if you view yourself as that, it's like, do you like oftentimes like, wow, like when I tell people about you and I'm like, Dave's done all this incredible things, like everyone knows the brand. And I don't know how much you think about legacy, but if you were to think about your legacy for a second, what would you want it to be?
Well, first of all, I'm just getting started.
Yeah, you see what I mean? Like it's a difficult thing because
I tell my kids, I'm like, I'm not sure what I want to be when I grow up.
I just said that the other day. Yeah. I was like, what are you? I'm like, I don't know. When I grow up, I think I want to be like this guy. Like,
I'm just getting started.
But if you were to craft that message for yourself, and you're like, I'm building my legacy. Maybe it's not built. I mean,
this is one of the reasons I decided to take this role at Highbeam is I think it's this enormous opportunity to build legacy. I mean, I think this is a really big swing. $1.3 trillion market of consumer brands, 90% of which sits in a Chase checking account, who offers very little value to the customer. And I think we can come along and we can offer enormous value and reinvent what banking is. And to me, that's a big, big mandate. And if we achieve it, a lot of entrepreneurs are going to benefit. And I will be part of this amazing shift that was deflationary for the economy and generate a lot of value for the world. And so I get excited about that. It's a big idea in a big market. I'm entering my prime in life, and legacy. I just keep going. I like right now. I'm doing a lot, and I'm enjoying it. Sometimes it's overwhelming. But
you're traveling a lot now.
I'm traveling a lot.
You're home less. You just moved. Like there's a lot.
There's a lot going on. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even think about that.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm just enjoying what I'm doing. I'm staying really focused on the inputs, not the outputs. That's another thing I try and really stay away from. It's fun to dream and it's fun to think and it's fun to plan and all that stuff. But ultimately it's about how many of the right calls did you make? How many of the right emails did you send? How did you refine your communication, your messaging, your storytelling, your value proposition, whatever it is that ultimately creates value for your services, your product, how much time and attention did you put into that? And so I really, really try and just stay focused on that as much as I can. And the rest takes care of itself. And I'm sure there'll come a time, hopefully many, many decades from now, where I'll think about legacy. And if I'm in a position at that time in life I of course donate now and I mean, Big Shot is a not-for-profit,
right?
Down the line, if I'm fortunate enough to be in a position to do more for the world, I will.
That's super powerful, and I think what you're describing is not only very like humbling, but also a great reminder for a lot of people that are listening. Like, it's always that day one mentality.
That's right,
and like. A lot of people are like, oh, Dave's accomplished this, this, and this, which you have, and it's shaped who you are, and it's built, in my opinion, an incredible life. But you're really just like day one, and you're refining your skills, you're sharpening your sword. How important would you say the role of like your environment has played into this? Because
Huge.
it's not like not
Huge.
everyone just develops this mentality. Like this requires a tremendous amount of strength. Like who was your environment, and have you over time and years, like have you been intentional with crafting who you spend a ton of time with, who you listen to?
Well, my wife, who's an amazing person. She's a neuropsychologist. She's brilliant, much smarter than me. None of this, I couldn't do what I do without her. You know, we have 3 wonderful kids together. The way I look at it is, on Monday mornings, I feel like I haven't accomplished enough. I haven't made it. You know, I'm in the game. I'm hungry. I'm ready to rock. Friday nights, I like to take a step back. I'm with my family, with my wife, and I try and shift into a gratitude mindset.
Wow.
where I'm thankful for all that I have, all that I've done, the people in my life who I love, who have supported me all along the way. You know, I met my wife over 20 years ago.
Like before DAVIDsTEA, right?
Oh, long before DAVIDsTEA.
Wow.
And she's been with me all the way through. And
It's very powerful.
big time. There's
And
no
uncommon.
way I would have been able to do what I did or keep doing what I do without her support, her guidance. She's an incredible sounding board for me, and has been, you know, and of course I have amazing friends around me who and one thing I love about consumer brands is the network.
Right.
I mean, you know, it's one big support network, right?
Right.
Like we all know what it's like. And you know, the highs are highs, the lows are low, and there's a whole community of people that's very supportive, and it's a beautiful thing, actually. So no, I feel very fortunate and blessed. There's no way without the environment I've been in, the community I've had around me, in particular my wife and my family, I could have done it or
Wow.
continue to do it.
That is super powerful. One thing I'll share, most of the guys that I've brought on so far, and actually the girls too, is they give credit to their spouse
For
and
sure.
their partner, and how like important that is, and how fortunate I guess you are at such a young age to like find that life partner that actually created like who you are
we
today.
went through it together. I mean, we went through the highs and the lows. I mean, we you know, she's you need that. You can't, it's very, very hard. You can't have it all. And if you want it all, you need partners.
Right.
And you know, like I'm in New York every second week. I'm you know, I'm traveling a lot, right? So I still have 3 kids, young kids who you know, and my wife helps fill in some of the gaps there, and it wouldn't be possible. You know, so I'm deeply not just appreciative, but grateful for her and for everything in my life. And I think that's really important. You know, what we do is hard.
Yeah,
it's hard.
It's hard, and I feel like entrepreneurship or building really anything is inherently extremely lonely journey.
Very much.
Even if you have like 40, 50, 100 people working, like, it doesn't matter. You've
Very
internalized so much of it.
Yep.
And the person you spend the most amount of time with.
My favorite saying is entrepreneurship is a personal journey disguised as a business pursuit. Right? Like you learn so much about yourself in the process. It's all encompassing. You can't turn it off. It's just there. It's with you all the time.
You carry it with you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So powerful. One question that we ask everyone that comes on the podcast, and it's always interesting, is if we were able to bring the younger David in here, and you can flash back to any age. So we'll ask you when you answer, just tell us the age that you went to, any age. And we were able to get David to come stay here on the couch, and you can share one message with that David. How old is that David, and what would that message be?
Oh, that's great. I think that would be 19-year-old David in first year McGill. And the message I would give would be, you can't be an 8-cylinder engine that operates on 4 cylinders. You know, you got to put in the work. I don't care who the hell you are. got to put in the work. Nothing comes without the work. Number one. Number two, just keep showing up. Keep showing up.
Wow.
Just keep showing up. I mean, I think that's the most important thing. People sometimes, it's not to say that there isn't a moment where you have to move on or do something else, or I'm not saying that, but I think people often, they pull up too quick, you know, like it's just keep coming, keep showing up, keep iterating, keep getting better. And it will pay off. It starts to add up. You know, you get better, you get better, you get better. Like you got to put in the work and keep showing up.
That's beautiful. 2 years ago, well, you've run, so I know this. Yeah. I remember when we first met. You're like, oh, you know, I run. Yeah, I was like, all right, let's run. We literally went on a run. Yeah. And the one thing I don't really run much anymore. I do other things, but the one thing I loved about running or climbing, you know, I did the Everesting climb and 131-mile race and all these things. Is it seems so far. Like even a marathon. A marathon is disgustingly far away. Yeah,
if I remember, you like rolled out off your couch and did it in like 30 days.
Yeah,
right?
It was 2 weeks. Because it's got a hair transplant, the whole thing. And
that was unbelievable, by the way.
Yeah, it was very painful.
I remember texting you and be like, "You're insane."
Yeah, you're like, you're not ready for this. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah,
but I remember like looking at the course and then running it. Yeah. And there was a point in the marathon, and people call it the pain cave. Yeah. You know, there's always a point in everyone's marathon where I remember saying to myself, like, I got 10 miles left. I remember I passed the half marathon, like I got 10 miles left. And I hated that saying. I got so frustrated because I was like, I got 9. I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah, of course.
Like, this is insane. And then it wasn't until I was like convincing myself where I was like, I would see like a fire hydrant, like maybe 10 meters away. And I'm like, I just gotta get to the fire hydrant.
That's right.
And I got to the fire hydrant. I was like, I'm gonna get to that turn. Once I get to the turn, I'm done. And I do the turn. I was like, you know what? 8 stations there. I'll get to the 8th station. Yep. Then I'm done. And I kept like telling myself, just get a little further. Yep. And then next thing you know, lift your head up.
You're done the marathon.
And you're like, oh, done the marathon.
Yeah.
Great. Same thing when you climb a mountain. It's like you see the mountain. You're like, this is disgustingly far away. But 2 hours later, you look down. You're like, oh, all right. And you just got to take the next step.
You just got to take the next step.
And I feel like that is so synonymous with entrepreneurship and building anything.
Absolutely.
It's just take this next step. Show up.
Anybody who thinks this is a linear game is out of their mind. Like it is grueling. It is hard. It is up and down and up and down. It's filled with good news and bad news and feelings of that you're not going to make it. And I mean, that's what it is, right? Like it is a very erratic journey that really tests you mentally.
Is there anything that you've implemented just over the course of the years? Like you've learned so much, you've been through so much so far. Like, is there a practice you have now to deal with the shitstorm that eventually comes your way? Or are you just like, oh, I'll sleep on it? Like, you just have divine belief and everything will be, that's what I do sometimes. I'm like, oh, it's always worked out. It'll work out again. But is there a practice that you've put into place?
Well, I mean, I think taking care of your health is super important. Like I exercise frequently, obviously. And I got really into meditation about 8 years ago. I do that several times a week. I find what
is that? Like a YouTube video?
Well, I actually have a meditation coach I do it with, and
so like on the phone, in person?
Yeah, we'll do it over Zoom. And wherever I am, I do half an hour. I usually do that twice a week, and I'll do one other time on my own. 1 or 2, depending on the week.
For like 30 minutes, an hour.
I've got it up to, and I wouldn't recommend people who are just starting out with this. Most people sit down, they do 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and their mind's gone within 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's getting
right. You have to work up to it. I've gotten to a place now where I can do 20, 30 minutes, no problem.
Wow. Sitting up? Like, are you sitting up or are you laying down? Like what?
No, I sit up. I sit up in a chair or something. You don't have to do a cross-legged. People think you got to.
Yeah, you got to look like the emoji.
No, you don't have to look like the Buddha. Like it's, but you got to sit comfortably and it's not about turning your thoughts off. It's about letting them go and not hooking onto them and getting lost in them. Right. So, and there's a variety of different exercises that you can learn that are helpful there. I find it just calms my nervous system down. It just like, if I could keep myself in balance and in check and keep my head on straight, I can handle anything. And I just sort of, and you just go through it. And I think it's important. I think there's a lot of wisdom in the Jewish concept of the Sabbath. You know, I had the CEO who has actually become a very good friend of mine who came in after me at DAVIDsTEA. brilliant guy. We worked really closely together to build the company and became very close. But he was religious, and he turned off his phone on Friday nights, and he didn't turn it on till Saturday night. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was nuts at the time. I was like, "You're crazy! Like, what do you mean you're turning your phone off? What happens if this happens?" And he's like, and the guy worked exceptionally hard. I mean, Sunday morning, 5 a.m., he's firing off emails. Like he was an intense guy. He worked hard, but he took 24 hours to cut off, his inflow of information and messaging. And I started doing it for a period of my life. And I kind of wish I kept it up. I do not do this today. I try and look at my phone less on a Saturday. And I certainly, most Saturdays, that is the case. But I just thought it was an amazing, incredible idea. And here's this, it's this old 1,000-year-old 3,000-year-old tradition that today still has probably more value than ever, right? Like in this hyper-connected world.
It's crazy.
This idea that you're going to turn off on a Friday night and turn it back on Saturday and have 24 hours for you to just re-energize and decompress, I think is an incredible concept. I think you need those moments.
We did that at Hush. My co-founder was religious, and we did not work pretty much Friday afternoon until Saturday night. Right. But Sundays were go time. So I find most people take Sundays off and half of a Friday in replace we had more momentum going into every week.
Whatever it is.
Just Black Friday was always a doozy for us,
That's different.
Because we're like,
you're going to do 50% of your business.
It's 30% of our EBITDA on the day we don't work.
Yeah, I'm not a religious guy, and I don't do it religiously, but I think this idea that whether it's Sunday or Saturday or whatever it is for you, this idea that you have one day where you, even if you don't turn it off completely, where you don't, just notice it for yourself. Notice the impulse to constantly reach for your phone.
Oh, it's crazy. I get 150 to 300 pickups a day.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who said, you couldn't do this 300 times a day.
Yep.
It's but you're picking up your phone. It's there's so many things that I've just accepted as just our new reality.
The phone is literally an extension of your body at this point. It's remarkable. But, and there's nothing, look, I'm not
I just do most of my business on my phone,
I mean, there's been enormous benefits. You can travel and still do business. I mean, the world is, by and large, they've been an incredible tool for the world. But it's like the expression, wonderful tool, horrible master.
That's very powerful. What is one last thing that you would want to share with the world that we potentially didn't cover, that you'd want anyone who's still listening to this, that you'd want them to know?
I think we covered a lot. I hope there's some listener who heard this today who is building something that's going to create jobs and has meaning in the world, where if this had any impact on you, that means a lot to me. So thank you for listening.
That's amazing. And how do people get connected with you, get connected with Highbeam? How do they get in touch?
You find me on LinkedIn, highbeam.co, T_Maverick on Twitter, on X, and on Instagram.
You're making more content these days.
I'm making more content.
You're making more content.
You'll see a lot more coming soon.
You'll see this.
I'll chop this up.
There you go. We'll chop it up for you.
Okay, good.
We'll tag you. We'll get the clips going.
I'm making more content.
David, as always, I want to get this on the record too. I think we met actually one of my last months at Hush.
Yeah,
we met. You came to the Hush office. You brought us some tea. Fun. Everyone loved it. But I appreciate you. You've been a very, very good friend and a mentor in many ways. Likewise. I've learned a lot just from our runs, our sauna sessions, and I appreciate you doing this, dude. It means a lot.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And supporting the Founders Club. You do so often, and we love Highbeam. You know that.
Yeah.
And it goes a long way, so I appreciate
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Founder to Founder podcast. And I have one favor, just one favor to ask. It's the only favor I'll ever ask from you. And if you liked what you listened to please subscribe, and please just leave a comment. Let us know what you think, how we can make it better. We are all in on delivering value to you, and all we ask in return is that you hit that subscribe. It goes a long way for what we're trying to build here And as always, we post an episode every single Wednesday. So stay tuned and thank you for tuning in.